Omniverse is the final chapter in the Prime Ben 10 franchise, yet the series often gets overlooked. Its art style is the most contrasting to the previous three series. The tone of the show has shifted, and to some, it changes what Ben 10 means to them. But it's still worth giving it a chance. For non-Ben 10 fans, it can be a starting point to newly get invested in Ben 10. And for longtime fans, it expands Ben Prime's journey and leaves behind a legacy that you don't want to miss. There will be minor spoilers for the series, although since it's been out for over a decade, there's a good chance you've already heard certain things anyways, whether I mention them or not. But I'd argue this still won't hold back your enjoyment. Number 1. Rook Blanco. The mere existence of Rook is ripe for caution. After about 100 episodes spent with the Alien Force trio, which was already a change-up from the classic Rust Bucket crew, sending Gwen and Kevin off within the first few minutes of Omniverse and replacing them with a brand new character is hard to accept, no matter how well you do it. But lucky for us, Rook is a joy to have around. He's marketed as the all-rules, no-experience guy to contrast Ben, but he quickly becomes much more than that. For one, he doesn't really replace Gwen and Kevin, as when the powerful duo returns, they get along quite well. Kevin appreciates Rook's technological expertise and intuition, and even enjoys spending time with him without Ben around, and Rook is able to talk about things with Gwen that are outside of Ben and Kevin's repertoire, even noting that they keep in touch between episodes. Rook was also selected by Max to be Ben's partner, so you can tell he already has his approval, and while it takes Ben a while to really come around to him, even he is unable to resist the charm that this Ravana-gander is packing. His proto-tool mirrors the Omnitrix in diversity. His fight scenes are always exciting, and he shows us what a real plumber is supposed to look like. Not to knock the trio's grind, as one could argue being off the books is a greater advantage, but aside from the background characters in the Tennyson retiree, we've never really gotten to know what it's like to pursue the plumber code full force until Rook. He may suffer a bit from early installment weirdness, but if you give him a chance, it's hard not to have him in your top 5 favorite characters of all time within the first few episodes. Number 2. Incredible visuals. Omniverse is practically inseparable from the controversy its new art style gave off, which tainted viewers' perspectives on the series nearly a year before it even aired. But after the whiplash wears off, you can see that a lot of the new character designs are such an improvement over their previous selves, they're on completely different levels. But character design isn't everything. The series isn't afraid to go off model to sell the intensity of a character's emotion, and get very playful and expressive with its visual style. Gwendolyn's magic and use of spells is expanded upon tenfold. Lighting choices are carefully considered, and the backgrounds are so detailed that every frame looks like a work of art. I challenge you to find a background in Omniverse that looks plain and dry. It's impossible. The fresh, bouncier animation also lends itself significantly to the action, which is a big thing in Ben 10 if you couldn't tell already. And the choreography has been taken up to 11. No more laser tag repetition or attack, counter, rinse and repeat. Omniverse fight scenes are so captivating, it's hard not to look away. They also frequently incorporate their surroundings into the action, making their current locations an even bigger part of the story. Number 3. Alien X. While it'd be daft to say that every Ben 10 fan cares about power scaling, it'd also be foolish to say it's not a factor with people's interests. And pinning Ben up against the limitless spectrum of fictional characters is one of the biggest reasons the show is still talked about today. And the leader of Ben's powerful campaign is none other than Alien X. But where do Alien X's best feats come from? That's right, it's Omniverse. All of his best and most notable feats are exclusively from this series. So if you're trying to talk up Ben Tennyson but you're still skipping out on Omniverse, you're making a huge mistake. In fact, the importance of Alien X, and in addition, Ben's reluctance to use him, is even more prominent here than in every episode of UAF combined. Alien X has even become an urban legend in the Ben 10 universe, with some folks, including Rook, not even believing he exists. It's a great way to acknowledge this transformation rather than completely ignore it when he's not relevant, and makes the handful of times he actually shows up gratifying. Number 4. Most episodes. Of all the shows in the Prime franchise, this series has the most episodes. How is that a perk? Simple. That means it has a lot to enjoy. Like UAF, Omniverse alternates between season-long story arcs and self-contained stories. With 80 episodes, this gives us plenty of exciting storylines, from a full-on invasion that forces Ben to be exiled from Earth, a chronosapien that gathers pieces of himself from around the multiverse to put himself back together, and perhaps the most famous one, a storyline that spans 2 seasons about Ben's mysterious alien feedback, one of Asmus' creations accidentally coming to life life and embarking on a revenge quest, and a special device called the Nematrix that holds predators to all of Ben's transformations. But on the other hand, when the stakes are low, we get tons of downtime to expand the universe of Ben 10, which leads to my next point. Number 5. World building. Omniverse is the first Ben 10 show where the universe actually feels lived in. There's tons of recurring familiar faces to make the series feel more populated, multiple notable locations, each with their own distinct feel to them, and the biggest selling point, alien homeworlds. In Classic, Ben never got a chance to visit one of his own alien homeworlds, and in UAF, whenever he did, there wasn't much time to make them feel unique, or at bare minimum, feel any different than just being on Earth. When Ben visits an alien planet in Omniverse, you can instantly recognize that there's a whole ecosystem and society that's entirely different from anything we've seen before. We explore how the species lives, meet a surplus of diverse character designs and attitudes, and spend enough time there where it truly feels like we're exploring a new planet right alongside Ben. But back on Earth, there's still plenty to hold our interest. Bellwood alone has many places to visit that feel fleshed out and alive. The new Plumber HQ gives Ben and the gang a home base to evaluate their missions, stock up on supplies, vehicles, and weaponry, and even has its own prison system, which gives Ben's missions a tangible endgame rather than characters ambiguously disappearing after the episode is over. And how could I talk about world building without mentioning Undertown? Just below the crusts of Bellwood exists a multicultural extraterrestrial civilization that has the most development out of everything I've mentioned prior. Here, we get to see the slow evolution of aliens integrating their culture on Earth, from food stands, appliance shops, a bar for all of the goons, all filled with colors, shapes, and textures galore. There's even a passive plotline about Argent making his way up the ranks of Undertown through his typical schemes. And of course, there's the titular Omniverse itself, which I can go on for hours about, but at this point, let's save those surprises and move on to the next topic. Number 6. Most aliens. While it started with an alien device, where did it go from there? Well, look no further with Omniverse Ben's roster of alien transformations. This series brings back basically every single alien from Classic, Alien Force, and Ultimate Alien, celebrating Ben's journey unlocking and scanning DNA. But what kind of show would Omniverse be if it didn't also introduce its own collection of additions? Omniverse includes a lot of fantastic additions to the series, each using their powers to emphasize the fun of being Ben 10, while simultaneously showing off his immense power. As the show is meant to entice new viewers, you gotta give it a season or two before it really feels like Ben is utilizing his vast arsenal of creatures. But with 80 episodes, that's plenty of time to show off just about every ability you can imagine. But the ball doesn't stop rolling there. We also get fusion transformations, alternative universe transformations, and even the return of Ultimate Aliens, along with some new Ultimate Aliens. It also improves on a few Omnitrix veterans by giving them new abilities, and more screen time to play around with their power set. If you're looking for expansive alien action, Omniverse takes an inch and gives you a mile of DNA to play with. Number 7. Music. The music of Ben 10 has always been pretty stellar, especially in the Classic era, but each series only has about 1 or 2 memorable tracks, and are unfortunately underutilized. Omniverse gives us a fresh soundtrack that still holds up to this day, combining electronic synths with grand orchestral foundations. The show gives us plenty of recognizable melodies that frequently occur throughout the series. It also has a handful of signature melodies that are composed based on the tone of the scene, allowing you to experience a familiar sequence of notes in various moods, taking what you know and letting your emotions interpret them differently every time. It's a shame that there's no official soundtrack release, but with the talented support of the Ben 10 community, you can hear multiple recreations of these themes right here on YouTube. Number 8. Characters. With every new show, new characters are a given. Expanding on our previous point about world building, Omniverse is populated by faces new and old. On the road, Team Tennyson didn't get many chances to see someone again, whether they're a hero or a villain. And in UAF, the supporting cast really only showed up when the plot needed them, which taints their ability to grow beyond the mission. This isn't to say that the first 3 series didn't have any notable supporting cast. I mean, Paradox alone can carry a scene on his back without breaking a temporal sweat, but Omniverse's palette of citizens, heroes, and villains is unmatched. Throughout the series, you get to know just about everyone and what makes them tick. The plumber base is filled with reoccurring scene stealers, and the folks that Ben goes up against are overflowing with personality and design. It's worth noting that there are many simpler, one-dimensional characters in Omniverse's cast as well, but even they have accumulated their own fans, and you might just find yourself being one of them too. Number 9. It's canon. This is perhaps the most important reason, but I decided to save it towards the end. Despite Omniverse being a potential entry point for new audiences, it is undoubtedly canon to the previous 3 shows. It may take its time to reintroduce older elements from its predecessors, but even for older fans, it's always nice to have a recap every now and then to make sure you can follow along with new developments. The sections of the Ben 10 community that shy away from Omniverse usually like to headcanon that this series takes place in an alternative continuity, mostly because it does indeed have its fair share of retcons, and there may be elements from what came before that just doesn't feel the same when integrated into Omniverse. But to say that Omniverse isn't canon is just plain stubborn. If you want the full experience of Ben Prime from the moment he found the Omnitrix to the end of his journey, you're going to need to watch Omniverse. Ben's story isn't complete without it, and frankly, the story of Ben Prime is much more satisfying with the series included. In fact, we wouldn't even have the term Ben Prime without Omniverse, or at least not officially. Simply put, you can't have Ben 10 without Omniverse. And number 10, the Ben 10 breakdowns. With the series ending in 2014, and even its replacement finishing its run, there is currently not much to fill the shoes of the series and give the fanbase something to talk about, but I believe that's where the Ben 10 breakdowns come in. It is absolutely no replacement to watching the series prior, but I find things more enjoyable when you have something to follow along with and create community-based discussions, and that's what I like to do with my breakdown series. I like to pick apart the episodes and give knowledgeable commentary on the series, filled with fun facts, production stories, animation praise and critiques, and most importantly, giving the community something to discuss with every upload. I've already done the first 3 series, which you can see their appropriate playlists on the channel, but if you want to follow along with me as I trek into the deep depths of Ben 10 Omniverse, I suggest you give the series proper a good watch through. Tell me what you have to say about the series, and give me your own opinions. What makes the Ben 10 fanbase great is its expansive community full of artists, power scalers, toy collectors, and fanatics. Even the casual fans have something notable to say, and I want to hear it all. So grab your DVDs, subscribe to HBO Max, or whatever you can do to get a hold of the series, and I'll be right there with you, episode to episode, giving you a detailed look about what makes the Ben 10 franchise something to behold. But until then, keep it fizzy.